And bizarrely, you like talk about linking odd things. So the art thief, Stefan Breitweiser, he's had this theory that the height of human creativity and therefore civilization was right before machines started stamping everything out, when everything was slightly different and a work of art, including like medical instruments, which he stole, by the way. And, obviously silverware and goblets, they were each one a little bit different. And that was like the maximum human beauty, because you took everything all the way down the line from the first person forging, a terracotta cup in a stove in the Rift Valley, 200,000 years ago, up to right before machines started stamping them out for us, was a direct line.
Right. And he was obsessed with that. Like, most of the art he stole was from, what was it, late 16th century, 17th century?
16th, 17th century paintings.
The end of the Renaissance.
Start of the Baroque, yep.
Just before the Industrial Revolution.
Right. The height of human in his theory. And I see it. I'm not sure if I agree 100%. I don't agree 100%, but I see it. Like, that was...
How would he steal?
How did Stefan Breitweiser steal? 201 times. Well, first of all, he had an accomplice, which was his girlfriend. How did he enter a museum? He bought a ticket, paid for it in cash. Don't pay for it with your credit card. And he stole like a David Blaine, like a street magician. Like, he had an amazing ability to read a room, gauge the limits of a guard's observation, look at security cameras. He never wanted to damage a work of art. First of all, he told me that his motivations were much greater than that of the 99.9% of thieves that steal for money. He was motivated by aesthetic desire. So before he would even think about stealing, he had to actually fall in love with the object that he wanted, which makes all the difference. If I'm writing, I could not write a book about a subject that bored me. I think it would just suck. I wouldn't be able to do it. I have to be fascinated. And so just like that, Breitweiser had to fall in love with the object. It had to also be the right size. It had to be the right amount of...
He especially fell in love. He was an aesthete. He seemed to... There's even a syndrome you talk about in the book, but it wasn't just like, oh, I like that. That looks pretty. It was a deep emotional and maybe even erotic to some extent.
Yeah, sometimes.
Connection to the art.
Right. So I'm not a big fan of the late Renaissance, early Baroque. I tend to like more modern art. But if, everybody watching this, if I said, close your eyes and imagine something beautiful, I think we'll all think of something a little different, whether it's a lover or sunset over the Alps. I can't wait to watch the Perseid meteorite shower tomorrow. I love meteorites. They're beautiful to me. Or a work of art in a museum. They're all going to be a little bit different, which I love. But that was the thing he liked. It didn't really even matter to me, the subject. I just liked his passion. And I applied it to many other things in my life, like working with the world's greatest art thief sort of upped my aesthetic sensibilities. So thank you, Stefan, for that. But yes, Breitweiser, like anybody who's good at something, also did their homework. Stefan Breitweiser, the art thief, worked as a security guard in a museum. He worked in a frame shop to learn how frames are attached, but really how they're detached. He loved this art. So when he stole a painting, he removed the frame. He put it at the small of his back. He treated it as one should with an unframed painting, as if it was a newborn baby, hid the frame somewhere else to break into display cases to steal these objects that we discussed made right before the Industrial Revolution. He wouldn't have to pick a lock. He ingeniously realized that display cases, the edges are all sealed with silicone glue. You take a sharp blade of your Swiss Army knife and you can cut along these edges, horizontal, vertical, like a sort of a surgeon's cut, and pull apart the panels, snake your hand in, pull the object you want to steal out.
His methods are so simple, but so sophisticated in the way that humans are sophisticated. It's subtle, it's sleight of hand. It's David Blaine, like you mentioned. Yeah. He could, you mentioned that you were asking him as a journalist in a hotel room, like, how do you do, you couldn't wrap your head around how someone could walk into a museum in broad daylight. This isn't Mission Impossible. This isn't lasers and, a whole team of security experts. It's like he would just walk in broad daylight. There'd be people moving around in the museum. Sometimes he'd be on a tour and he would just do his thing, take something and move out.
I would love to be able to take that iPad, but you would see me. So yes, we were in a confined situation like this, even closer together, and you have your iPad there, but I had my laptop basically there. And I'm like, Stefan, I really don't understand how you're able to steal with people in the room. You've explained this to me, but there's just something I'm missing. And just like right now, I really think it's better to maintain eye contact during a conversation rather than, look all over the place. Though I did have that whole experience with the hermit. We'll talk about that later. But I use a digital recorder when I'm interviewing people, but I also have a notebook in my hands to be like, keeps running his hand through his hair, or just I'll put down things that won't be picked up by a
heightened sense of where people's eyes are. I mean, such fleeting moments. Like there's a point in the book where he steals from an outdoor art gallery fair, something to that effect, and there's enough security there that his girlfriend is saying, "Don't do it. Like this is unsafe." And then somebody else steals something or attempts to, and people in the crowd are like, "Thief!" And and the security guard he sort of intercalculates in a split second that the security guards at the front are going to move towards this commotion, and then he takes like $1 million painting in a split second and just walks out the front. He sort of calculates all of that in a half second. I mean,
he's like a math, or like a chess genius who's like a couple of steps ahead of everyone. Yeah. So when we're interviewing in the hotel room, I said to him, I don't understand how you can steal in front of people. He looks at me, says, "Well, did you see what I just did?" Yeah. And we're in a tiny French hotel room. I'm like, "I did not see what you just did." And he stands up from the little chair he's sitting on. He turns around, and my laptop computer's at the small of his back. And I guess I had lowered my eyes to take a note, and he had stolen it and then sat right back down, which is why I wish I could take that and prove it. But I have no skills as you. So he showed me in a hotel room how he's able to literally take something from under one's nose. And the story that you mentioned, which is also incredible. Just like when I think of an art thief, I think of someone like planning a heist for weeks at a time. Literally, he's at an art fair in Maastricht in the Netherlands. He's also an art lover. So he just went to take a look and maybe get some ideas for what he might want to steal from museums in the future. He's walking through this art fair and someone screams, "Thief, there's a thief there." And just like you said, like immediately he's like, it's a good time to steal a work of art when someone else is stealing a work of art. I probably would have had to think about this for like months. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what I should have done at that moment." Like in like that he intuited absolutely correctly. He bet a prison term on this, like that all the guards would rush to grab this thief. This thief was tackled, captured, arrested. The object that this other thief that Breitweiser didn't know, the piece that he had taken was removed, everything back to normal. And during this commotion, Breitweiser stole a multi-million-dollar Renaissance oil painting because there was another thief in the room. So, I mean, I am completely opposed to stealing from museums, but I'm completely obsessed with listening to amazing tales of daring do like that. Like that is kind of, I don't like to use the word genius, just like I don't like to use the word psychopath, but boy, that is kind of a genius criminal move.
Right.